Hello, welcome to my channel. This is Amber Rain Davis from NotableInk.com. Today we're going to be experimenting with alcohol inks again. These alcohol inks were from the Simon Says Stamp October 2018 kit. They are Ranger inks and they're readily available, and we are going to be creating ice fractals with our alcohol inks today. So let's get started. As always, products will be linked down below. So I have a piece of YUPO paper here, and I am spraying it with a mini mister of Perfect Pearls and water. So I'm prepping the surface, and you can see that I'm adding quite a bit. In fact, I'm getting pools of the Perfect Pearls water mixture in several of the places. Then I'm going to take the Ranger alcohol ink, this is the color Stream, and I'm going to shake that onto the surface, and you can see that it almost acts like oil and water, and it pushes the water and Perfect Pearls out of the way. So now I'm shaking the bottle down like you would shake down your ketchup in the ketchup bottle to get different sized inks, ink splatters. I like how it's almost like skipping rocks, like you would see those successive little puddles. I'm going to take my mini mister again and see if I can get some of them, but not all of them moving. I want to keep the fractally shapes there, but you can see how the edges start to spider off and feather out, which I really liked the look of that. So I'm going to keep adding some additional color. I really only used the one alcohol ink color for this particular panel, and we got the variation of color from the use of the water and the Perfect Pearls, diluting that alcohol ink. So I'm coming from different directions now to make sure that it does stay a random pattern. And I'm liking the way that it looks here. I love the hard white areas, but I wanted it to diffuse out a little bit more. So now I'm taking the Perfect Pearl mixture and spraying from further away. Now I'm about maybe 8 to 10 inches away from the paper. And then I'm just going to let it sit and dry. It took a long time to dry because there was a lot of moisture on the paper, so I let it sit overnight, and this is what it looks like. Even in this light, you can see that Perfect Pearl shimmer that we have going on, and I love how it turned out. So I'm going to Copic color a little critter here. This is a Lawn Fawn stamp. Again, I'll have the specific stamp set linked below, and I'm just using my W1 Copic marker, so W1, W3, and I think I add some W5 as well. So right here with the belly, I wanted him to have a nice round belly, and when I put that down, I was like, oh no, I might have gone overboard there. So I kind of left it alone, went somewhere else, and then as I eased back into it, I got my lighter W1 and kind of blended that out. I wasn't too sure when I put it down at first though, but I did overall like how his belly turned out, particularly once I added shading to the left side of his body. Right now, the shading on the belly looks a little disjointed. So I'm using the W1, W3, I'm using the 0 colorless blender marker in order to feather out the edges of my shading and make sure that I have a nice transition. So I'm going to keep kind of going back in. The nice thing about Copics is that they're transparent, and you can start with just a little bit of color and continue to add until you get the contrast that you're looking for. So moving on to the scarf, I have a BG10 to put down 2 layers of a base coat, and now I have the BG13 and the BG49 as a mid-tone and my darkest layer. Actually, I think that's a BG15. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start with 2 layers of my base coat, my lightest color, then go in with the mid-tone, then the darkest color. I'm going to move back out from that. And then I generally go in and do another layer of that, sometimes 3 layers of it until I get the color that I want. Same idea with the skates here. I put a shadow underneath his ankle, and then again coming from the left side, as if our light source was coming from the top right. And I really like how that looked I'm going to add just a little bit of pink to the ears and feather out my shading a little bit more. Now when I put this onto my alcohol ink panel, I felt like it was too blue-green. There was too much green in it. So I had a practice piece where I was testing my colors. I grabbed a B12 and I'm just going to add a layer of the B12 right over my BGs so that I can change it from less green to more blue on the blue side of teal, and that more closely matches the darkest spots on my ink panel here. So again, that's the really nice thing about Copics being transparent. You can change the hue of what you've got going on without having to redo all of your shading. So I've taken a piece of Basil 40-pound vellum and I've die cut it with a stitched rectangle die from Fawn, and I'm also using these stitched border dies to cut some hills. So I'm going to do 2 hills in vellum that overlap, and then I've cut out, I've done the same thing with my alcohol ink panel. I trimmed it with the hill die and then also with the rectangle die to get stitching around all the edges. So I was working out my layout to see where my sentiment was going to go. I love these large sentiments by Fawn. It's such a cheery font and I just adore it. So in order to balance the busyness of our ice fractal panel that we're going to have at the bottom, I knew that I couldn't just have a completely blank piece of white cardstock at the top. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp and clear heat emboss my sentiment. And then I didn't have any snowflake dies, but what I did have was the My Favorite Things medallion trio dies that you see up there in the right hand corner, and I felt like those were a great size and a perfect thing to use to dry emboss that background, to add just some texture in the background that would be white on white. It would add a lot of interest without being overwhelming. So I did a little playing around on some scrap pieces of cardstock to find out what the best sandwich was for my big shot. It happened to be the second platform layer with my 2 cutting plates and the thicker like Spellbinder's embossing pad, if you know what I'm talking about. It's like that kind of like rubbery texture, and that seemed to be perfect. You do want to play around with some scraps before you do this, because if your sandwich is too tight or too thick, it's going to pierce your paper and tear it, and if it's not thick enough, then it's not going to give you as much of an impression as you need. So play around with that first. I'm going to go ahead and fussy cut my little character here, and we'll get everything adhered, and we're almost done. With some practice, my fussy cutting has gotten better and a little bit faster, so I'm pretty happy about that. I'm going to go ahead and check my layout again. And I'm just using the scissors there to mark how far up I need my glue to go. This is just Ranger Multimedia Matte. I find that it doesn't show up much at all underneath vellum. I put a piece of 1/8 inch score tape on the bottom there, and that is going to help to keep that lower edge, which will be covered by the ice panel, super glued down. That's a really strong adhesive. I'm going to go ahead and use the score tape on the back of the ice panel on all 4 sides. And I've got my block there just to keep that glued down and keep some pressure on it while the glue is drying. So I was playing around and I couldn't figure out what was straight for my little bear, so I used the stamp packaging to see how he should be standing. And then I usually cut the whole sequins part out of my videos because it generally takes me 100 years to figure out where I want to put like 3 sequins. In this particular case, I'm putting a whole bunch of sequins on there. These are the Pretty Pink Posh Marshmallow Confetti Mix. I love these sequins. I think that they're an amazing color. They go with almost every project. And that is it, you guys. That's the whole card. I don't normally do scene cards, and this one was so much fun. I had such a fantastic time with it. I loved the alcohol panel technique with using the Perfect Pearl water first, the embossed background. I just really loved everything about how this card turned out. You can see here how much shine and shimmer the Perfect Pearl mixture added to that alcohol ink panel. That's definitely something I encourage you guys to try out and see what kind of effects you can get, and just kind of trying different base layers before you start to shake down your alcohol inks. Here is another card that I made with that same panel, same idea with the embossing in the background. I'll link this stamp set down below. It's an old one from Fawn. This little guy fell through the ice. If you watch Dell and Artie's videos, you may have seen Dell was doing his card where the little girl fell through the ice, the brother pushed him through. I happened to be making this card when he was doing his live video feed, and I thought it was hysterical that we were both kind of sacrificing somebody at the same time. So thanks so much for joining me today. I sure hope that you enjoyed this video and these techniques. And if you did, please hit the like button below, subscribe to my channel, my Instagram account at Notable Ink, and my blog at notableink.com. Here are a couple more videos for you to check out. Thanks again so much for stopping by, and have a fantastic day.